It's time to pull up a stool and grab your spot at the bar. The stadiums are dark, the scoreboards are off, and the final whistle has long since blown. But in here, the lights stay on. Welcome to the ETB Lounge on the Empty the Bench Network. This is your official post-game nightcap, where we break down the biggest hits, pour one out for the heartbreaks, and dive into the stories that linger long after the clock hits zero. Whether you're here for sharp analysis or one last round of sports talk with the best fans in the game, you've come to the right place. The games are over, and the conversation is just getting started. Pull up a stool, gang, and grab your spot at the bar. The stadiums have gone dark, the scoreboards are off, and the final whistle has long since blown. But, of course, the lights are on this Sunday for the final week of July. Welcome inside the ETB Lounge, gang. My name is Callan, McClurg, and tonight the bar is fully stocked with absolute chaos for the next 2 hours. LeBron has chosen his next destination, heading to Philadelphia, creating a massive new superpower in the Eastern Conference, alongside the likes of Joel Embiid, and recently picked up Jaylen Brown. While one star aligns, another one finds himself on the shelf as Juan Soto is on the IL with a calf strain right as the baseball trade deadline looms within the next week and reaches a boiling point. But also, guys, questions are mounting across admin offices as WNBA stakeholders are now openly questioning if Commissioner Cathy Engelbert is fit to lead, while Michigan is paying their former AD, Warde Manuel, a staggering $7 million lump sum exit package, and a federal arrest of a Alabama NIL executive in a human trafficking ring has sent massive shockwaves across college athletics. And also, Kyle Shanahan walks away from a car crash, thankfully, while John Lynch holds the line on Brandon Aiyuk, remaining on the left squad list. And we have a Sunday night cycle unlike any other. Joining us tonight, as always, is Nick DiMartino, David Weightman, Ben Kruse, and Connor Rowland, and a lot of ground to cover and a lot of takes to cool down and a lot of cold truths to also pour out on this Sunday, July 26th, as we do, in fact, get to the final Sunday of the month of July. Nick D, great to see you. As always, my man, how are we doing today? Good to see you.
All right. How are you, Callan?
I'm doing all right. I wish I could be better, but things are going about as smooth. For those wondering, my dad's out of town. He's over coaching international baseball in a smoldering hot Italy. So it's me and my mom watching the dog. So it's been a very chaotic couple days, but he's been doing all right. I've been doing okay. So thank you for asking.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of LeBron news. Too bad, because we were talking about it on moving the goalposts, and then the next day it all came out. So I guess the show is moot now. Or that segment is, I should say.
And I feel the same as I think Tuesday there's a clip from Cranium coming out about the schedule not being released because we were all led to believe they're holding out the schedule because of LeBron, and now it's almost like that one's almost like null and void now too, it feels like. So I concur with you and share the pain.
Yeah, well, at least we're doing live shows now, so.
Yeah, thank you. I know. Hallelujah. Ben Kruse joining us as well tonight here. Ben, how are we doing tonight, my man, as the Red Sox seem to keep on winning?
Yeah, no, we're playing well. We've won 6 straight series. Obviously had a 15-game winning streak that came to a halt this past week, but it's been playing good ball with the trade deadline coming up. So 8-2 homestand, which I could not complain about. That was the longest homestand of all season. So yeah. All in all, pretty good.
David Weightman joining us in Philadelphia. Mr. Weightman, the Phillies trying to try to hold off the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball on NBC. But David, great to see you as always, my man. And more importantly, I'm sure you're glad that MLS is finally back after their 7-week hibernation for the World Cup.
Yeah, it was good last night. They got another dub. They got 2 dubs this week, which is amazing since they were in the toilet. But yeah, everything's good. I mean, Philly, it's all about LeBron right now, from the fanatic throwing up fake powder dust to everything clean. So, yeah.
Got 11. Of course, our betting guru, Connor Rowland, also joining us. Connor, great to see you, my man. How's it going tonight? Good to see you.
Life's been pretty good. Been on a hot streak these last few days, and today I would have came on the show with a smile that would have broke my face, but unfortunately the Dodgers decided to forget how to play baseball.
Would the smile had to have been surgically removed by a doctor?
No, honestly, I think I would have just left it on. I'd be spreading joy everywhere I went. If the Dodgers won, I would have walked away with another 2,800 onto the till last leg. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. But I've been good. I'm enjoying baseball being back, and I'm pretty excited to see how the Red Sox continue to play, all things considered.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, especially if we got roughly 6 or 7 games before we get to the trade deadline too, which I mean is going to be a huge thing that we'll be watching as time goes on here.
Yeah,
with that in mind, folks, go ahead.
I said we made a trade last night too. We got to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, so we'll work in a few of that, though. Here's what's on the menu, though, and what's on tap today, folks. We'll talk all things LeBron James here in a few minutes here. Him officially signing the 2-year deal heading to the 76ers, what that means for the Eastern Conference. We'll talk all things baseball involving Juan Soto's injury, maybe some potential what we'd like to see our teams do. I'm sure that Ben and David have talked about that on Hitting from a Cycle, but we'll kind of do that here, though, too, for those of us that have not really had a chance to talk some baseball. The WNBA is coming out of the All-Star break, but also, guys, new comments coming out involving stakeholders wondering if Cathy Engelbert, the commissioner, is the right person and if she is fit to lead the WNBA with so much drama happening both on the floor but also mainly off the court as well as time goes on. And once we get towards hour 2, we'll talk all things involving Kyle Shanahan's car crash, but also John Lynch, though, fellas, breaks the silence revolving around Brandon Aiyuk. We'll also talk all things involving college athletics, though, with Warde Manuel's official buyout from Michigan, but also some sleazy details from Tuscaloosa involving a dark crime story involving a Alabama NIL executive being arrested for human trafficking with federal charges. So a lot of things here are on the docket. But, of course, if you're joining us, folks, live here on ETB on YouTube or on Twitter, of course, you can give us your thoughts, though, on in the live chat box on Twitter or on YouTube. More importantly, though, folks, you can also find us, too, on social media over at ETB Network, of course, on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok. And also, more importantly, you can also go and like and subscribe, though, too, over at youtube.com/ETB Network as we get ever so closer to 3,000 watch hours, about 2,700 and counting, and getting close to that as well. You can also follow the show on social media, on Twitter, IG, and eventually we get our TikTok count back up. That will be over at the ETB Lounge as well. All right, guys, big news of the day, though, of course, comes in wake, though, of the news made early Thursday morning involving LeBron James picking his new side for year number 24. That will, in fact, be the Philadelphia 76ers, who apparently have now leapfrogged a few of the Eastern Conference teams now to become the number 1 pick right now at this rate for the Eastern Conference Championship. It is a very much 2-year, $8 million deal and a 15% trade kicker going to LeBron James, which now puts him next to Joel Embiid, Jaylen Brown, and also a young core of DJ Edgecombe and also Tyrese Maxey. David Weightman, obviously being in Philadelphia, you of course, being, having, I'm sure, worked some Sixers games, what have you. It was weird, David, that we talked last week revolving around the fact that even just him saying trust the process last week at Fanatics was a very, very interesting ordeal. Like, oh my goodness, he's going to go to the 76ers. And like, all the Sixers fans were like taking victory laps that day. But though, David, it comes official on Thursday. And here we are, my man, with LeBron back in the Eastern Conference for the first time since he was back in Cleveland 10 years ago. Your thoughts?
Was surprised, wasn't stunned that he chose Philly. I mean, when you read some of the tea leaves, it sounded like he didn't really want to go back to Miami. Like he did his time there, won, and decided to move on. Philly now is stacked. If you look at that roster, I mean, even what was this past weekend, they picked up Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So they're almost like now 10, 11 deep. They'll probably go get another guy for the league minimum or, super cheap thing. And that's like I said, they're gonna be stacked, ready to go. The scary thing about that team is, I mean, there's a possibility. I used the back-to-back scenario. They could possibly do an Embiid LeBron thing where one of them takes off one night, the other one doesn't. But if you get a team, like say they play Sacramento one night, you use them as like one of the bottom feeders in the NBA,
right?
And they bring out all 5 of them as their starters. Jesus Christ! I mean, like I said, they might beat some of these teams by 30 points. Just roll through them and just keep on moving. So, but Eastern Conference to me though is still tough. The Knicks, defending champs, are still, even they lost a guy or two, they're still going to be contenders. As far as I'm concerned, Boston's going to be contenders. Miami and a couple other ones too.
Ben, I really wonder how much this does shake up the East from your perspective, obviously, with the Celtics having dealt JB to Philadelphia. Now you see that, and now you see this group being built here between JB, between Embiid. Maxey, Edgecombe. Now all of a sudden you add LeBron James at the, back nine of his career, though. 2-year deal, $8 million in a way, probably team failing to go and, make more moves to David's point, though. Ben, reaction to the news about LeBron heading to Philadelphia?
I'm shocked, but I'm not. I mean, I just kind of took a look at a lot of the.
I can't hear you.
And, I felt like if he was going to kind of go to one of the teams that, was kind of like the obvious ones, like the Cavs or going back to LA, I felt like it would have been done a lot earlier than probably was thinking. Golden State, I know Nick and I kind of mentioned Golden State possibly as a fit if you want to stay out west, but apparently Philly was the choice. I guess he was really thinking Philly before he signed with the Lakers in 2018 also. So he had some interest about that, and he said basically in a tweet once he signed that, he's just kind of doing what's best for his family, and he's just kind of, going with it for the last couple of years of his career. So, obviously joins the Sixers. I'm a little bit salty in a way. Kind of the fact is like we were kind of the one that kind of opened the floodgates because I felt like if Jalen didn't get moved to Philly, I don't think LeBron was going to go over to Philly. That's just kind of my overall census about it. But all in all, I mean, now, of course, the Eastern Conference is completely back after kind of the West kind of took over for the last several years. I do still think my Celtics will be good. I think they'll be competitive. I don't think they're going to be at the top of the top like they have in the last several years. Obviously the Knicks probably going to be, the number one, obviously be defending champs. But I mean, Philly now has a big gripe, at least to be a top 3 seed in the East now with a lot of the moves that they've made. So you can't deny them. They're trying to, of course, make a push, and of course, getting JB, getting Maxey. Even if Embiid's not even 100%, I think now you have a lot more depth, and they're really pushing for it.
Nick D, I think that this adds a nice little chapter for the Sixers and Knicks rivalry that they probably have built over their franchise histories now with LeBron James heading to Philadelphia. I know there may have been like some small rumors maybe they could have been in the mix, they being the Knicks maybe for LeBron, but obviously not coming off the title. I don't know if you really want to throw off the team morale or team chemistry that much when you want to ship, though. But it does, I think, add a nice layer to that division and now the Eastern Conference, where LeBron's been out west for the last roughly, I'd say, 8 to 10 years roughly with the Lakers. Now he's going back to the Eastern Conference for the first time in a decade. Nick D, how much does this move though in your mind really shake up maybe the division, but maybe the top part of the Eastern Conference, especially with the Knicks coming off the championship run?
Oh, a whole lot. It shapes the East. I mean, the Atlantic Division is now like maybe the best division in the NBA. With this move, it shakes up the East a whole lot. It also shakes up the East in a way where it's a little like it just really isn't clear who the best teams are going to be. And it's not just this, but it's also what happened with Giannis going to Miami. None of us really know what that's going to look like, largely because they don't have a lot of depth, and Giannis tends to be injury prone. So I think the East this year is going to be very interesting because we don't know. Because there's so much that's so hard to tell. We don't know how much worse Boston's going to be without Jaylen Brown. They'll probably be a little worse, but we don't know how much worse. We don't know exactly how available LeBron is going to be throughout the regular season in Philly and how that's all going to play out. And we don't know how healthy Giannis is going to be or how Miami's going to look with a very shallow roster. So I think there's a lot of question marks. It definitely does put Philadelphia as one of the favorites. Or I looked at the odds.
They're tied right now for second.
They're actually, I think they're just for winning the East. I think they're for Eastern Conference winner. They're just behind the Knicks at plus 350. Philadelphia is. So that changes everything. I mean, that does catapult the Sixers' chances quite a lot just with LeBron going there. I guess it's kind of interesting. Look, if LeBron is anything like the player that he was last year, he absolutely does give Philadelphia a much greater chance to come out of the East or to win the finals. I was never fully convinced that this was the best fit for LeBron, exactly, part of me, just from a basketball perspective and also a little bit from a personality perspective. Right. like I mentioned this last week, and this is just not even a basketball point, but it's a more of a reality TV drama locker room point, which is that Jaylen Brown has a very strong personality.
Yeah.
He seemed to be very unhappy with a lot of things in Boston, which, by the way, Boston's a very well-run organization. Jason Tatum is a star who doesn't talk a whole lot and is very humble. And even then, Jaylen Brown was unhappy. So what's going to happen now with LeBron missing a bunch of games, Joel Embiid missing a bunch of games, playing for an organization that is not as well run as Boston? I feel like there's going to be some drama going on. I predict drama going on.
I mean, that's a fair point, but I have to say three main things. One, LeBron could have gone anywhere. So the fact that he chose the 76ers means at least, like, we can't project ourselves into his brain, but at the very least we can take from that there's some reasoning that LeBron feels that this is the best fit for what he wants coming up, which is a championship ring. So I feel like he's, for whatever you could say, he chose the 76ers. I think he goes into that eyes wide open. But two, it also depends on the kind of role he takes on. You know, Jaylen Brown sure could be kind of like AJ Brown in the sense where you're a great player on a great team that's run pretty damn well, but you're still not happy and people point fingers about it. You know, that could be the case. But LeBron, I don't think, is coming in there to be a big personality in the locker room. I know LeBron, wherever LeBron goes, he is that, but I feel like him going to the 76ers is you're going to get one of the best relief players you could possibly get. Because even on, like, he averages still 20 points. He's there to take some pressure off of their young stars so they're not injury-ridden by the time they get to the games that matter. There's a lot of teams out there that when they take their star player off, they're risking the loss. By them taking one of their star players off and putting LeBron in, they're still preserving their record.
David?
Yeah, there's some things that are about this. First of all, both of those two, Jalen and LeBron both play the same position. They're both power forwards. So you figure all that stuff out. Who's small, unless they go, we're going to have two power forwards, would be an interesting scenario. The thing is, too, is this, I mean, this is more of up Connor's alley. Fantasy-wise this year, it's going to be fun with that team. You got to basically every day see what news. Because, you know, like you said, guys taking days off. You got 4 or 5 guys who could score 20 points a game, and you got one basketball. That's another scenario. I mean, it's an interesting scenario how they're going to have to work that out. In terms of all the R stuff, I imagine they'll bury a lot of that stuff before training camp. Because last year, remember, Jalen said stuff about Bronny, and LeBron was pissed off. What do you mean, his kid? So whatever beef or whatever it is, get in a room, talk about it. I know LeBron's already had some conversations with Embiid and Maxey. Of course, he's a clutch guy. And you just go, look, I'm here to win a championship. And if he does win this year, first player ever to win it with 4 different teams. Never been done before.
That'd be insane if it actually happened too, by the way.
Yeah.
I also have to say too, and this is obviously, in a sense, compared with, like, we talk about the landscape of the East. Don't discredit this Indiana Pacers team at all. I think that they're going to come back next year with a healthy Halliburton. I think he's had a lot of time off. Mm-hmm. I think that team is not going to be like it was last year. At least I would be completely shocked. You got Siakam, you got Nemar, you got a ton of pieces still there from, you know, obviously the team, of course, we played in the Eastern Conference Finals with them in 2024. So then Detroit, I mean, I could not rule out Connor's Pistons at all. You know,
we didn't do anything good, but we still have Kate. So that automatically makes us a top 5 team.
And listen, I mean, I still think, you know, you guys you're still right there. I mean, Bickerstaff obviously is an extremely good coach. So, like, you got to just kind of take those teams into account that, like, the East is going to be an absolute battle. It's going to be a warpath.
Yeah. I think they're also going to be, like, I always say when it comes to football, if you want to be a Super Bowl team, there are certain teams you have to beat. They are the crucible. They are like a barometer, a measuring stick. But now with the NBA, with how strong the East is going to be, it is going to be a crucible. Can these teams that are objectively good, missing parts, sometimes they don't come up to the mark, can these teams perform against – look, at this point, it's like fucking Space Jam, and they're going up against the aliens after they got juiced up. That's the fucking
Monstars.
Yeah, that's the East right now. You know, every team right now is trying to do the Knicks method where it's like, all right, let's get 4 or 5 superstars, put them all in the starting lineup, and that's what we're doing.
Ben, keep an eye on if you're on the Atlanta Hawks. You want to talk about a team that's under the radar. They were 6th last year, made some great moves this summer. They could be in the 4th spot this year. That's how.
Yeah, no, they'll be in the mix. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be at the top. I mean, I look at it like in different type of tiers, and I mean, right now the top 1 tier I think is the Knicks and the Sixers, at least in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's going to be Boston, Cleveland, Detroit, kind of in that tier 2. If I kind of had to predict, I think we take a little bit of step. I mean, how can we not, take a step forward without losing Jalen? I think it's going to take a lot, I think, for our team to start gelling now without Jalen Brown, especially, Tatum's still coming off of that Achilles. I still do. So, but I think we'll still be in the top 5. Still, of course, because Missoula, the coach we got, and Nick, like was saying, about the way that, of course, we run our team. So, but
I'm curious to see what the Hornets do. I know this sounds dumb to say out loud, but with them getting rid of LaMelo Ball, which I thought yeah, literally, exactly. Like that could not have been the dumber. At that point, I thought someone was intentionally sabotaging the franchise when they did that because LaMelo Ball breathed new life into the fucking Hornets.
That's fair though.
Was it a contract thing coming up though with him too?
Yeah.
Even if it was a contract thing, like for what he did for the team and how well the offense began to run once he kind of like took the reins, I feel like you got whatever bread needs to be broken to get him to stay there. You got to do it,
Yeah. Got rid of Miles Bridges too.
Yeah. Are we all of the belief, by the way, guys, that the Atlantic sends 4 of their 5 teams back to the playoffs again next season? Boston, New York, Toronto, Philadelphia.
Yeah, I see Toronto making
Toronto Raptors.
Yeah,
Toronto. I mean,
they were the 5 seed last year. They were 10 games over 500.
Especially if Kawhi, they were what, a
46 wins last year. 46
wins. They were there last year without Kawhi. So
you got RJ Barrett. Yeah, the Kawhi thing's still. Yeah, and they'll make it. I don't know where they're going to be, but they'll make it.
I mean, I think so. I mean, if we ever get a damn ruling about the aspiration penalty.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. But if Kawhi joins the Raptors, they're at least a 50-win team.
I think they're at least, I'd say probably in the ballpark of 45, 50 wins again, like they were this past season.
Well, my question would be, if anything, like how much of the gap, is it just me or is the gap closing a little bit between the East and the West now?
I feel like it probably is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe the last, I'd say, give or take the last 3 seasons, maybe the last 2 for sure. I think this past year for sure, though, with New York beating San Antonio.
Nick, I don't think there's many dominating teams in the West. I think it's Oklahoma, San Antonio. If somebody wanted to give me Denver, I'd be like, okay. But
Denver's up there. Outside of those
that's
3, and I don't know how much I really believe in Denver either. Maybe Minnesota. Maybe you can put them there.
Okay.
Maybe those 4. But outside of those 4 teams, I don't know who else really.
Did you guys say already?
So,
what was the other 3 you guys mentioned in the West?
Oh, we mentioned San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Denver, and I said maybe you could put Minnesota in there.
Minnesota, yeah.
They're
lost Randall, but yeah.
Is the Bucks considered part of the West or no?
No, Milwaukee's in the East.
Milwaukee's in the East.
The West.
But though, Connors, a cool nugget though, the Bucks have won 2 rings. One of them was in the Western Conference back in '70, before they moved to the Eastern Conference. So if you ever get asked about that, there you go. But for those, by the way, that were wondering about the West, by the conference standings last year, Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets, Lakers, no LeBron, Rockets, Minnesota were the top 6 last season in the West.
Out of all those, besides the ones that we mentioned, I feel like the sleeper I would put the Rockets before I put the Minnesota.
I think the Rockets could be a sleeper.
Yeah.
52-win season last year for them, by the way, for those wondering too.
They're getting more experience too in the playoffs too. So
yeah, and their issue isn't like a lack of depth or player talent. It's more so what you see indicative with young teams or teams that are cobbled together hastily, where at certain points where you need that cohesion, it just falls apart. But when I see that as a fan, that gives me hope because it's like, okay, this is a fixable problem.
Also, by the way, real quick, the bottom 4 in the West: Blazers, Suns, Clippers, Warriors. Any hope for those teams? I don't, especially with Portland, with how their ownership is like wrecking the franchise across the board. My God.
Yeah.
Portland's got some good players, but the ownership can be a pain in the ass.
And they also have John Morant as well heading to Portland this year.
Yeah, more scoring.
I don't think Golden State has much of a chance. I mean, look, I think like they'll be a playoff team. I think they can have a winning record. I don't think they have much of a chance to actually come out of the West.
I would say the same for Portland. I feel like they'll be a middleweight team, but they can't go past that. They don't.
By the way, Golden State made the play-in, guys, with a 37-45 record last season.
Yeah, that's how bad the West is. It's like the AL West in baseball.
The interesting thing about the East and the West last year is that overall the West was better, but the East was deeper. Like all of I could be wrong about this. I'm pretty sure all of the teams that even made the play-in at least had winning records in the East, whereas in the West, Golden State, there was 1 or 2, I think, that had losing records. So there wasn't a whole lot of depth in the West.
Every Eastern Conference team that made the play-in had a winning record. Philly and Orlando were tied at 45 wins. And then Charlotte and Miami were 44-38, 43-39 in the West. The Blazers, Suns, and Clippers were the only teams who had winning records. The Warriors were 37-45. By the way, it was a 11-win difference between number 10 and number 11. New Orleans and Dallas were 30 under 500, and they were the next closest teams to the play-in tournament cutoff at 11 games under 500.
The other thing I'm going to be curious this year to see is teams that are bad, but will have players that are really good on their teams. Like Dallas, you mentioned with Cooper Flag. You don't know how Irving's going to be coming back after being out all last year. And the one guy I want to see for Chicago is that Caleb Wilson for the rookie they got from North Carolina. Yeah. He looks like he's going to be an absolute beast this year.
The Bulls were 20 games under 500, and they were right behind the Bucks by 1 fewer win for the cutoff line for the Eastern Conference, which, by the way, the next closest team to the Heat was 32-50. That was Milwaukee, who didn't make the postseason.
Yeah, they were a mess last year.
Did we see New Orleans? I feel like New Orleans is going to be right at the bottom, too. They just are very dysfunctional from the top.
Pelicans?
Yeah.
I just saw a thing of Zion. He looks like he's ripped and ready to go, but the team itself just sucks.
Yeah, I mean, the Zion stuff I've seen way too many times. Like, he just can never – I have to believe it until I see it with him. I mean,
is anybody going to be as bad as the Wizards won 17 ball games last year, gentlemen?
No.
Every league needs a stat pattern, man. Every league needs a stat pattern. Every league needs Miami Dolphins or a Browns, you know?
No, what do you mean needs? Needs anybody to be terrible.
I think Trae Young will be great for fantasy this year. He'll be just shooting like crazy. Brooklyn got Randall. They could, I think they'll be better than the Wizards.
Brooklyn won 20 games last year. They were 3 games better by wins over the Wizards.
Yeah. I think it might be. I'm trying to think. No, the worst? Sacramento. Sacramento is just, I mean, if you want. The
Kings and the Jazz both went 22-60 last season.
Yeah, Jazz has got there's sort of young talent. They also got Jaren Jackson, that trade. Sacramento is literally dog crap on fire. I mean, they had Russell Westbrook, Zach LaVine. They just gave $50 million to, and he's hurt every year. Talented guy, but he's hurt every year.
I feel bad for Doug Christie.
I was at the Kings at Celtics last year at TD Garden, and I kid you not, as I was waiting outside in the blistering cold, I see a fleet of Kings fans flooding down, and a bunch of Celtics fans around me are just saying, I didn't know that the Kings actually had fans.
What? I'm going to say they're going to be the worst. They're going to be worse than the Wizards this year.
It was hard to watch. I mean, obviously is bought out. You know, Sabonis. I feel like Sabonis could definitely. The Celtics, I think, had some interest a little bit actually in Sabonis. I think it could definitely be a interesting piece. You know, by the mid part of the year if they're not going anywhere, which I don't think they will. So.
And by the way, I have family who is Sacramento Kings season seat holders. They live in West Sacramento, which is the capital city of California. I asked them once, Janelle, why do you guys put yourself through this torture? Like, I know about the Padres being tortured, and they said it's the only team in town. We don't count the Athletics, but that's the only thing that they have for professional sports in Sacramento. So they're gonna, put all their money into watching the Kings, and a lot of their fan base is like farmers or bankers or government employees who work for the state that go to the games up there in their new arena. is really beautiful, too, from what I've heard at Golden One Center. But that's where things are in the NBA with LeBron James heading to the Philadelphia 76ers for the upcoming season. One quick thought from Nick Morganson. And I think, though, this is a good point, though, that David brought up, though. Not enough basketball to go around, though, for his team, guys. Also, LeBron in his Twitter thread claimed he was close to retiring. I don't believe anything that he says anymore.
I mean, he is close to retiring. I mean, if he's 2 years away from retiring, is that not close to retiring?
And I wanted to back up David and also back up Nick Morganson's thoughts, though, because I kind of saw this, though, guys, when the Lakers made that splashy move or those moves back in, like, 2011 when they got Dwight Howard and then they got Steve Nash, too. Which led to Mike Brown being fired out of L.A. during the course of the season for Mike D'Antoni. One ball for 3 guys that are ball dominant, and then Kobe and Dwight had their friction for 2 years, much like Kobe and Shaq did after they won those 3 titles. So, yeah, you hope that he can balance out these, the player egos a little bit. But once more, again, LeBron heading to Philadelphia, 2 years, $8 million. With that, guys, all things hoops, all things basketball. But trade deadline is now literally next Monday, and sadly for Nick DiMartino, more bad news for the Mets with Juan Soto on the 10-day IL with a right calf strain suffered within the last couple of days. Nick D, obviously a year to forget for the Mets. So I mean, it's like good cop, bad cop. You've got good cop. Knicks win the title, so you can at least you have that for you. Bad cop, though, the Mets having a dismal season, obviously blowing out Carlos Mendoza, injury problems, bad contracts. Nick D, what would you like Steve Cohen to do at the trade deadline next Monday? Do you sell off everybody, not name Soto, but what do you think the Mets should do come next week?
I don't know. I mean, I would say anybody not named Soto or Lindor, although frankly, I'm getting a little I'm souring on Lindor a lot, so I are saying Lindor could potentially be traded, but I don't really think so. I mean, look, with this, I mean, you were talking about the Knicks winning a championship and the Mets sucking. I mean, that's kind of like what it was like to be a Cavs-Browns fan in 2016.
Oh, for sure. 1,000%.
So it's not really that unusual. But, yeah, I think – I don't know, because my thing is – with the Mets is that there's so many different holes that they have, that there's so many things that they could be doing at the trade deadline. The issue is that it's almost better if they don't make moves, because every move David Stearns has made has missed. He's missing on everything. Like, that's the biggest issue. It's not just about, I mean, look, there are some games where the starting pitching is really bad and the starting pitching could be much better, but there's also games where the Mets just don't score runs. Like, it can go in so many different directions. So there's a lot of blame to go around. I mean, Devin Williams has not had a good year. No. So the Mets bullpen really isn't all that great. I think there's a whole lot of players that really haven't lived up to expectations. Everybody's still harping on not re-signing Alonso. I mean, I get it, but the ship has sailed.
Yeah, that ship sailed a long time ago, folks.
Nothing we can do about it now. It doesn't help when you have a bunch of players playing out of position. The way I would see it right now is that the Mets are in such a bad position that there's nothing you can really do to fix it at this point. It's like
not in one fell swoop. No, you're gonna
have to having a car that has, like, a bad engine and like a flat tire and it's all crushed in some areas. It's like,
hey, that was my comparison about the Padre offense back in May.
I would say it's like looking at a totaled car and you can't, and you're just like, yeah, maybe if we fix this, but then we also have to fix this and then this and then this, and it's like you have to create like a whole new scenario.
I feel like also there are certain problems, and this goes true for fixing any sports team, but to your point about how, like, some days the starting pitching is really bad and it sets the Mets off on a really back foot, and other times they don't score at all. I think it's easier in today's baseball era to fix a pitching staff problem than it is to fix your team's just hitting like shit. I think it's a lot harder to fix the offensive core of any team, but I think that's what they need to do first, because I think if you could get more consistent hitting, the pitching that you have been doing thus far, it's serviceable. It's not great, but it's not terrible. You can fix it easily.
Here's the problem, though. I would put it like this: you need both. I mean, I would say, here's what I would compare it to. It's like how you need a college degree, but sometimes a college degree isn't enough. but it's a baseline of what you need. So I would say having good pitching is like a college degree, and having good hitting is like having a master's degree. If that makes sense. Like,
it does.
You have to have good pitching because every team that's a contender has good pitching. But on top of that, you also have to have good hitting. So you need good pitching as a baseline, but just having good pitching is not enough. And the Mets don't have either one. And when I say good pitching, I mean good starting pitching, like a good rotation. Yeah. Bullpens, I would say bullpens in baseball have turned or a little bit like offensive lines in the NFL, which is that every team seems to not have great bullpens. Like there's not a lot of really great relief pitchers anymore, it seems like. So that seems like a little bit of a common weakness. So even if the Mets bullpen isn't great, if they at least can have good starting pitching and at least somewhat consistent hitting. I mean, nobody really hits that consistently anymore anyway. Look at batting averages. We have a bunch of power hitters, but batting averages are horrible. So that's not even that's a really difficult thing anyway. I'll say this, though. If there's ever going to be a year where Juan Soto gets injured, this is the best one because we're not going anywhere anyway. So,
I guess the lockout coming too.
I guess if we hit rock bottom, that's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it could be better, it could be worse. And Nick Morganson, please ask Frank the Tank about Francisco Lindor. Well, we can ask him right now.
Godless, fucking shit, most godless, fucking godless, fucking team.
And good as for Soto, he's doing a movie right now, so.
No, I forgot about that with Emma Stone, who happens to be a Padre fan, which I think is pretty hysterical too.
Honestly, it's funny you mentioned Lindor though, Nick, because I need Lindor to strike out tomorrow, and I win a bag. So I'm not saying that I'm wishing ill on the Mets, but I'm wishing ill on Lindor specifically.
Oh man, that is good. Ben, your thoughts about what the Red Sox might do now? Obviously, at the trade deadline coming up on August 3rd. Of course, it looked like it was going to be maybe sell. Then it's this, franchise record tying, season altering winning streak though, and then they snap it though, and they come right back though. I know they did make a trade though of Connolly early heading to Washington though for Curtis Mead late in the evening on Saturday. But Ben, what other needs though would you like to see the Red Sox address come the trade deadline next Monday?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, and it's kind of a bummer because Shea Langoliers from the A's was a guy I really wanted the Red Sox to get, not because, he's a catcher. I feel like maybe just catching would just kind of be a place that maybe we can kind of upgrade, but it's really just the right-handed pop. And he has a torn meniscus, so he's out for the year. I mean, there's a couple of guys I'm looking in the infield. Jeremy Pena from Houston, even though I don't think that they're going to move him. Zach Noto seems to be kind of the guy that they're most connected with, from the Angels. So I think just probably another righty bat and then probably another relief arm is probably my look at it. And obviously with Knicks Mets, Luke Weaver is a guy that I might be taking a look at because, like, in terms of our bullpen, I actually think our bullpen is one of the top strengths of the team. When you have, 7-9, you can go Whitlock, Slayton, and Chapman. You also got Weiser and a couple other guys as well. Guerrero, of course, is really blossoming. So, I mean, like, we obviously relief and a bat's obviously the biggest need. And then, of course, the trade that happened last night. The Red Sox have a bunch of lefties in their rotation. I obviously love Connolly a lot. Apparently the Nats were saying that he might not be pitching for a while now. So I think that, Craig was kind of looking at trying to get a righty guy that can come in. He right now currently Curtis Mead would be the second best guy in terms of homers and the second best in terms of WRC plus. I mean, the guy specifically I think is going to come in. He's a breakout type of player and he's a pull side bat. He's a 22% in terms of pull side power. And David, you might know in terms of what pull side percentage might be, but when you have a pull side at Fenway Park for a righty, you got to love it. So I had to try to warm up to the overall feel of it for the trade. But I do like it. I think it's a win-win for both sides. And it's also, too, usually, a lot of the trades, it's kind of a contending team kind of trading with a selling team. This was kind of a mixture of a little bit of both because the Nationals are still kind of in it. So it was definitely interesting to say the least. I am going to miss Connolly a lot. But when you have Jake Bennett, of course, blossoming, of course, he was from Washington. You kind of had to do some business there. And I think that Craig took a chance already which I like a lot because he was definitely not the same way that he was last year. And, of course, look what happened in the second half.
David, Ben makes a good point though about the NL wild card. It is a massive slog and log jam. It's almost like nobody wants to make the postseason in that number 3 spot. Arizona's got that right now by a game over Pittsburgh and Washington. The Cardinals are a game and a half back. The Padres are 53-53. They finish off the Comic-Con trip 5-5 after a disastrous, weekend in Kansas City, getting clobbered 3 out of 4 by the Braves and going to Miami and sweeping a very much down on the dumps. Marlins club has now lost a franchise record-setting 12 straight games now, and that was all birthed after a game-tying homer from Machado. Then Jackson Merrill hits a go-ahead homer in the top half of the 8th inning, though. But David, the Phillies, though, still in a good spot, 1.5 games behind right now with their game against the Yankees in progress right now, still in Philadelphia. Biggest need, though, David, for the Phils will be what come trade deadline day?
Arms. They need backup starters. They need left-handed bullpen guys. It'd be nice if, like he said, it'd be nice if you get somebody like, a hitter. Like you said, because they're wafer thin, as I told Ben last week, just in terms of the roster and everything else. It's when you pick up Tommy Pham, who's like on his 15th team, and he's in AAA trying to help out. That's not a good sign. What? Yeah, that guy, exactly. I think he's coming up. He's actually coming up on if he wants to buy out his contract too. The thing with the Phillies, I just want him to leave him alone. This team was it's the run it back club, and they did it for a couple of years. Okay. They got smoked by the Mets the one year. The following year, they get beat by the Dodgers because they just couldn't hit to save their ass. That's the problem with the team right now. Big time guys getting big time money and not producing. Schwarber, Harper. Trey's he's hitting a little bit. JT Realmuto not doing whatever it is. This is one of these ones you just let it ride. And the thing I always fear too is they make a move and then somebody goes, "Well, we want Gage Wood." Okay, and then you basically just decimate your farm system, and then really you're even worse. So my thing is just let them be. Don't unless you get like a minor move and you give back like a minor prospect like from 15 down. Other than that, I wouldn't touch nobody. I mean, I've heard everything from Tarek Skubal. You'd have to go Wood definitely to get that one. I mean, and he's going to be a rental because he's going to go right back on the free agent market. Philly, let it be. Let's ride it out and see what happens.
Connor, how much do you think, though, that from your perspective, maybe about for any trade deadline, that the last couple games, like I think some teams will play 7 games or 6 games over the course of the last week before we get to the deadline on August 3rd, though. How much does the final week, though, before the trade deadline in your mind loom? How large does it loom, though, for teams that are, maybe in a bit of a I'm going to buy, I'm going to sell, or maybe teams that might be stuck in the middle across, where baseball is at right now with the season?
Well, I don't want to suggest that I'm of the mindset that you should just go ahead and make a decision, regardless if it's a smart or not smart decision. But I genuinely feel that if teams who had all this time to consider their options and consider whether or not they want to, as you said, buy or sell, and they're still pockmarked with indecision, well, you're not going to get any better by doing nothing. You've got to do something. You've got to make a decision. So I personally, I don't think it'll change anything greatly. I think the teams that know where they want to go already have a strategy in place and they're ready to execute. And I think the teams that are marked with indecision are probably not going to make a decision at all. They're probably going to stick with what they have. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger on a buy or a sell.
This might be the first trade deadline in the A.J. Preller era that there is no clear right answer for the Padres. Again, they finish off the Comic-Con road trip 5-5. Again, I make that joke because the team has to leave Petco Park for the weekend of Comic-Con, which just came and went here in downtown San Diego. They came out of it, though, guys, 500. They went 53. They're 53-53. And obviously, there's been so much, chatter about, trading Mason Miller, maybe trading Michael King or trading Adrian Morejon. A lot of other rumors, were circulating about maybe they attach the Bogarts contract. And the thing I've been trying to say, though, about this whole process is that, okay, say that you do that, like what Nick D was saying about the Mets. You trade Mason Miller. that opens up, a hole in the bullpen because you have your rotation right now is like 2 guys and you're piggybacking with Randy Vasquez and Griffin Canning and JP Sears while you've got Michael King being the only real serviceable guy right now. And they somehow made it work over the weekend against the Marlins somehow, but then the Marlins have lost 12 straight games. So this might be the first rare time that maybe you don't see a San Diego Padre team be as overly aggressive. They might be more conservative with their efforts. So obviously, as David pointed out last week, the Padres are the 30th ranked farm system right now, and they're not going to touch Ethan Salas. So there are 2 promising young arms that are in high A right now in Lake Elsinore. But it will be, I think, though, very intriguing to see what they do, though. I'm of the belief, though, they probably don't do a whole lot. It might be a minor retooling, though. But I'll tell you what, though, if they do trade Mason Miller somewhere else, I mean, that creates a whole massive firestorm here in town that I don't want to see come to fruition for the ball club. But who really knows, though, if it's the right offer, we'll see. But more than anything else, though, if it does happen, you have to get major league talent. You can't afford to, get prospects and wait 3 to 5 years for them to come back here and get themselves, to the pros eventually. With that, guys, back to the basketball, though. But the WNBA just wrapped up their league's All-Star Weekend from Chicago. But, guys, the big talking points, though, is not about the Encore Park as it usually is. But, guys, more surfacing reports, though, involving more internal friction within upper league brass and leadership, as I've spilled out into the public view, though, as key league stakeholders, team executives, and, of course, the Players Union. Now, though, have had their reps raising more sharp questions, guys, concerning Commissioner Cathy Engelbert's leadership and if she is, in fact, unfit to lead the league forward. Critics have pointed out to mismanaged media rights negotiation deals, the very much botched CBA negotiations, charter flight issues, and also, of course, the never-ending public crisis involving high-profile player safety incidents during the course of gameplay, which the league says, though, or the league talking points, though, involving infrastructure is failing to keep pace with the fan growth and the demands of the league over the last 3 years. Ben, I'll start with you because obviously this affects you, though, in a way that with the Connecticut Sun being uprooted, though, from the greater New England area and being shipped off to Houston in 2 years' time, which, again, I think a lot of people, and myself and Nick Morganson talked about this with Jordan Robinson months ago from Odyssey, that here the Celtics have their minority owner step up to the plate and put a bid in to maybe move the team from Unkinsville, Connecticut to Boston and play at the Garden. And the league said, no, it wasn't the formal, it wasn't like formally properly done right. So instead, we're going to move the team to Houston and bring back the Comets moniker. But also, Ben, and I think, though, and we all agree here, I would say, any sports commissioner's job is a thankless position because you have people that love you, people that hate you, vice versa, what have you.
Mostly people that hate you.
Yeah, mainly people hate you. I agree. But though, Ben, I think, though, that though I have loved seeing this league finally get like their due diligence, though, after, the last 30 years of trying to get, their proper respect, though. But I think, though, what's always tough for me, though, having, been a fan of this league and this sport since I was in 8th grade, is that now you're in the news, though, daily, but for all the wrong reasons. Referees throwing out star players, the Caitlin Clark issues, and now it's become, politicized across, Outkick and other things. And that now, and mainly, Ben, and that's the big thing I tell Nick Morganson, we don't sit here, guys, on programs now, and we don't talk basketball. We're here talking about off-the-court issues with the commissioner's office and players getting fined, players getting teed up, though, for the basics, like clapping after making a basket or maybe some small trash talk, and that there's been oversensitive referees who have rabbit ears. And then it's all about, Sophie Cunningham, with her remarks, though, away from, a game. Or again, it's being done, though, for like political reasoning and not about basketball. So, Ben, overall stance about Cathy Engelbert, though, maybe from people's minds, though, unfit to lead the league forward, though, with what has gone on, though, mainly more so recently here than and maybe over the past 2 to 3 years since Clark and Reese entered the league.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, you just kind of just see with the way the NBA is kind of transpiring. There's been a ton of movement. Obviously she's at the forefront, kind of overlooking at a bunch of different spots. I think the WNBA is really kind of became a league where it's, really started to get more popular, a lot more, women, sports are really kind of having that. Of course, basketball is something that, Clark and Reese and a bunch of, girls are really playing at their level. But of course, like you mentioned with, Connecticut Sun, going to T Garden the last couple of years for some games. I didn't get the chance to go see them, but, you saw the Garden being pretty much almost sold out for women's basketball, and it's a little bit unfortunate, but you kind of just have to. They just kind of have to go where they have to kind of go, and so we'll have to kind of see in terms of what happens more and more about it, but I do think it's very interesting to kind of see in terms of where they do go from here on out, because the commissioner, I agree. They obviously have to make a lot of changes, to say the least.
David, go ahead, Connor.
To build off what you guys were saying and about how it's a thankless job, I feel like, and this may sound as if I'm digging at the WNBA, I'm truly not. I think we can all acknowledge that they've had a surge in popularity.
1,000%.
So with that surge, former incompetencies that would go missed or otherwise non-reported are now reported. They're now being seen. With the WA becoming much more than what it used to be, people need to be good at their jobs. It's no longer I'm not saying being the commissioner of the WNBA 5 or 7 years ago was like a desk job that you post about on LinkedIn for the title. I'm not saying that. But I will say that I guarantee you people, high-level executives in the WNBA are going to appear more often in news articles, in the public eye, in the media, and because of them being subject to that sort of scrutiny with their newfound popularity, so too are the standards going to be higher. And I genuinely feel, correct me if I'm wrong, how long has Cathy been the commissioner of the WNBA?
I believe it's 2019.
2019. Okay, so I would say that's before the rise in popularity.
2019. Yeah.
So it could just be that Cathy is used to performing the job at a subpar, a subpar performance level, and now that the WNBA is popular, she's realizing she can't pull the same shit. She can't do the same shit, and she's not rising to meet that challenge. I see it happen all the time in corporate America.
Right.
You have a guy who's riding a desk. He's been doing the same shitty job for 5 or 10 years. No one checks in on him. Nobody cares to see if he's doing his job all that well. Then boom, a new branch manager or regional comes in. Everyone's starting to see who's doing their job, doing what. And that guy's either got a year to get with it or he's on a PIP and he's out the door. So the WNBA is a business like no other. It would not surprise me if right now Cathy's ass is on a PIP.
David, I will say that, the one thing I might give Cathy credit for, though, is probably about being bold about this league growing beyond the 12-team bubble. I mean, you'll see it firsthand when the Philadelphia Liberty Bells, whatever the hell they're going to call the name, comes to Xfinity Mobile in 2030, or the new arena, I should say, being built where the existing one is for the Flyers and Sixers and Philadelphia, that they might try to, lure Don Staley away from South Carolina to become the team head coach or part owner or team GM. But also, though, David, that, even though all that's great, I think back to the last year when I've been here a part of the network, that, when we were on playback, Nick Morrison and I watched the final game of the finals when Vegas beat Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And we said that we were going to show the whole presentation, when they came back from the commercial break. And I even said during the break, I'm going to be very curious to see how this Phoenix fan base treats Cathy. Will this be like, yay, bravo, or like any other commissioner? You and I know very well, so does Ben. Will she get the Gary Bettman treatment or the Adam Silver treatment where you get booed to high hell? Right. To the point, though, where the whole arena booed. ESPN had to blur people flipping her off on TV, and that she never really got a word out because it was like, a whole cascade of boos coming down on the commissioner's office. So, David, as I said, though, we're at the point now where the W is not even being talked about for the encore product, though. We're talking more about, flagrant fouls, Callan Clark being, hit on the face during the course of going up to the basket, players getting teed up for stupid, for very soft calls. I think when it's about, showing the emotion that they get teed up, though, more players getting hurt, and stuff. And that I made that point, though. And yes, Cathy got booed by the whole building in Phoenix and also got booed during the All-Star game presentation after the game as well. So there you go.
Fair, I think the commissioner of the WNBA getting booed might be a good sign for the WNBA because that shows that it's a real league.
Yeah, we're almost every other commissioner, I think, but Don Garber does not get booed in Major League Soccer.
Right, like Roger Goodell always gets booed all the time. I mean, look, the NFL is the most popular league in the country, and their commissioner is super unpopular. So I don't.
Manfred getting booed, Bettman getting booed since the 04-05 lockout.
I mean, in a way, the most well-liked commissioner right now might be Adam Silver. And he's mishandled a lot of things.
Yeah.
He's not even that well-liked. But, I mean, is that even arguable? He's got to be more well-liked than Gary Bettman. Is he still the commissioner of the NHL?
Oh, yeah, he's still there.
He's much more well-liked than Rob Manfred and certainly much more well-liked than Roger Goodell. So,
Bingo.
He handles – I agree completely. I think – I don't disagree at all that Roger Goodell is clearly a much better commissioner than Cathy. But my question, I think there's a lot of things that are wrong with the WNBA, which I don't think it's just about the commissioner. I think there's a lot of things that they do wrong, including the culture of the WNBA amongst the players themselves. It kind of seems like a little bit like a toxic culture that takes place in the WNBA.
There's a lot of built-up resentment, I feel like. Being part of the WNBA is quite literally being the poor kid on the block, and the rich neighbor is your next-door neighbor. You know, you see the blow-up bouncy castle, you see the clowns for the birthday, you see the jacuzzi heated tub, and you look back to your backyard, and there's the same sprinkler that waters the bush that's dying that you guys, like, jump around in. Now, I'm not saying – that was oddly specific, you know. We all had a sprinkler growing up, I guess.
Yeah.
But
we all had slides in the backyard, yes.
My point is that for a long time, WNBA players have wanted more from the WNBA, and now they're finally getting it, but it's still not enough. There's a lot of players that feel, despite everything, they're still not paid enough. And I feel like if you go into a job where everyone's mad as fuck that they're not getting paid enough, that's going to create a toxic workplace. That's going to create.
I don't think that's the reason why, though. I think it really just is a cultural thing when it comes. It just has to do with the culture of the WNBA, because I'm sure they're getting. I mean, look, they used to fly commercial.
Yes.
Now, that's crazy. Like, they were not in a very good position beforehand. I really just think it's a cultural thing with the players in the WNBA where there's just a lot of built-in resentment. I mean, I would say the WNBA is the problem with the WNBA is that it became really popular. Let me rephrase that. It became much more popular in very quickly in a way that normally doesn't happen, and they weren't able to handle it.
They weren't ready for it. No.
David?
No, because like Nick just said it. 2019, when she was hired, how many big-time names could you probably say on WNBA rosters? All of them.
You had a lot on the back nine, like Candace Parker was on the back nine. Taurasi was on the back nine. I think Sue Bird was just out of the league about around that time as well, roughly. Tina Charles, a young Asia Wilson coming out of South Carolina to Vegas.
Maybe a couple, but your average fan wouldn't be able to name probably five players.
So you get this surge, probably was it 24 when it was Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese,
Paige Beckers.
But all these ones that now come in. The thing is, and like you said, she probably just didn't handle it right. I think what will happen is the following. She'll get a golden parachute at the end of the season. She'll just maybe she'll do something like hired like behind the scenes, almost like a consultant type of thing. And then the thing is, if I go to the Players Association for WNBA, I would go, here's a list of names. Like one, they say it's Cynthia Cooper. You go, who would you want as a commissioner that you feel comfortable with? Is it this one? Is it this one? Or is it this one? Like, we're going to choose somebody here because it's only going to get bigger. I mean, you think, 4 or 5 more teams coming, including Florida. Cleveland, Detroit, some other
Houston.
ones.
Via Connecticut.
Yeah, I could see Boston in due time getting a new one. Getting a team. Maybe they'll throw someone out west. But you got to get a commissioner that everybody kind of, built on. And then in terms of what Nick said about getting paid more, whatever else, they're probably also going to want a bigger season. So, they might go, I'll throw out a number, 50 games, 60 games.
I think they're going to a 54 or 56 or 58 game, maybe 60 games in a couple of years, actually.
That's fine, yeah. So, if they're going to continue to build this, I haven't seen ratings and all this. Is attendance up a lot this year from the whole league, or is it?
They were Nick Morganson and I did the math last night. They were about 1,100 seats short of a sellout for an NBA game at United Center in Chicago for the All-Star game yesterday.
Okay, yeah. So as long as they keep building, that's like I said. I know there were some points like saying we were going to sit out the winner, and Angel Reese made a threat the one time, and somebody else, and then all the other stuff with the refs. That's where you get them in the thing this year and saying like at the end, like for next year, like either like lower down like your sensitive thing with ears, whatever it is, whatever.
Bingo.
Else. The fighting will always happen. That's the league. Like
the fighting isn't really the issue. It's how the WNBA handles fighting. Like all right, there's going to be a couple of fouls on Caitlin Clark, but they're all like flagrant fouls. But I do think it says a lot when the refs don't notice it or they don't call it. Like that's
up to it. Exactly.
That's
Thank
kind
you.
of the issue, which is like I understand that flagrant. It's similar to what people said with the NBA about Wemby. Right. About how like the issue wasn't all the flagrant fouls, it was that he got away with so much of it, and that was the issue with the WNBA. One thing you have to remember about the WNBA is that they were subsidized by the NBA, for quite a while, so they really weren't standing on their own 2 feet. Like, and when you don't stand, when a league doesn't stand on its own 2 feet, and they're being subsidized by something bigger, they're not. You don't really learn how to support yourself.
Yeah. I mean, one solution you could do, I always throw this stuff against the wall. You get some young referee, maybe he's in the NBA, like maybe like a rookie, whatever it is. Maybe for a little bit extra dough, he works at WNBA and just kind of figures everything out. That thing where he tells them, this is how I call the game with fouls and everything else.
So by the way, guys, within the next 3 years, we have one new team joining the league. So we got Cleveland in 2028, Detroit in 29, and then Philly in 2030. Is where things stand for the expansion bids right now for those 3 marketplaces. Nick Morgeson brings up Candace Parker for WNBA Commissioner.
That's fine. Like you said,
I don't like it. I don't think a former player should be a commissioner.
Especially when she's got a great media career and sending her daughter to UC San Diego, which is a very tough school to get into for volleyball.
Do you think, I don't think a former player would be a good commissioner. And one of the reasons I wouldn't want it is because what if she's not fit to be a good commissioner?
I don't think she wants the job anyway. I don't think having got to interview Candace when I was in college and having known her for a few years, I don't think she would want the job anyway, to be with her family, her wife and the kids, and being more active or being more present at her daughter's college volleyball games in a couple of years. I mean, possibly, but I don't think so, sadly.
And she does the NBA show. She's got WNBA March Madness too as well. So right.
I think she's got a pretty full plate as is. I mean, I don't mind the idea, but yeah, I mean, something about like to Nick D's point though, like a former player maybe being commissioner. I might take like director of media relations, and I won't be censoring people when they cover the team and they're covering the league and their teams maybe, but
PR people. I mean, they don't have very good PR people. Like
that's what kills them.
Hey, they should hire the Miami Heat guy.
Miami Heat guy.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys don't know about that? Intern accidentally leaked the story, and am I the only David? You don't know.
No. Right? Oh, I remember. Yeah, they leaked it. They said it was the LeBron news conference, and then like everybody.
Oh yeah, that one.
Are you saying LeBron going to Miami?
Yeah, they had.
When they had that whole snafu that YouTube link being put out.
Somebody in the Miami social media really did mess up.
Yeah.
So they
had this intern or worker apparently leak that LeBron was going to Miami. And we don't know if that was actually true or not, because LeBron changed his mind and signed with the 76ers. But apparently the Miami organization was mad enough about this that they same day fired the guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
YouTube. Let's here we go. YouTube link accidentally leaked by Miami PR team, and it was called LeBron introductory press conference. So
I love the term accidentally.
Sure. Give me a break. With that, though, folks, you can step into the cage every Monday night with our good man Tom Albano as Fight IQ breaks down the world of combat sports with the precision of a championship game plan, from analyzing ground control at PFL events to breaking down the technical mastery of the world's best strikers. We cover the technique, the drama, and the business of the fight game. If you want to understand the IQ behind the world's most dangerous athletes, Tom has you covered every Monday right here at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, only on the ETB Network. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel today at youtube.com/ETB Network as Tom continues his great work covering UFC, PFL, MMA across the board. So join Tom every Monday to get your Fight IQ fix as we prolong here inside the lounge until the top of the hour. With that, guys, all things NFL, we have another leg now that is a story involving Brandon Aiyuk. But we first, though, guys, want to quickly get to a quick story revolving around Kyle Shanahan being involved in a motor vehicle collision over the weekend. Fortunately, early team reports confirm he walked away without any major injuries and will be hopefully on the field, though, when training camp resumes, and also for week one. Most importantly, though, guys, on the personnel front, though, John Lynch finally breaks the silence still regarding the ongoing feud right now between Brandon Aiyuk and his employer, though, saying in part, quote, that Brandon Aiyuk, I know you guys are going to have a lot of questions, John Lynch said. Brandon is currently on a left squad designation. As such, he is not on the team's 90-man roster, and I personally and we as an organization are going to focus on the players that are here, and so I don't have anything to say on that front, anything to add to that. We wish him well, and we will wish his family well, open and close quote. While Matt Barrows, who is an athletic writer who was there, also said in part, actually it was a follow-up question from the Athletics' Matt Barrows, who said, I know you wanted to avoid the Aiyuk questions, but as a reporter, I'm obligated to ask you a couple. Is the intention to keep Aiyuk on that reserve or left squad list A? And then B, you guys are playing the Commanders in week 6. He's been adamant he's going at some point to join Washington. Is this part of your calculus that you're not just going to release a guy so that he winds up on the opponent's roster? And John Lynch, who, by the way, owned a bunch of radio stations here in San Diego, said in part, I understand that you've got a job to do. I understand, but, as I said at the start, he's on that list. That means he's not on our roster, and I'm going to focus on the guys that are and stand by what we've said already, open and close quote. And also that ESPN's Nick Wagner also made one last attempt, though, but again, John Lynch shot that down very quickly. Nick D, this story is not going to go away anytime soon. And again, we know that we've already talked at linked here in the lounge, though, about Aiyuk's conduct away from the team, still doing these Instagram, IG videos. These posts have been going out, still, though, adamant about him going to Washington somehow, some way, though. But now, though, Nick, we have the first signs of life from the Niners revolving around Aiyuk's conduct. Not much of an answer from John Lynch, though. But, Nick, your thoughts about this whole situation, and will this and is this going to prolong and spill over into the start of training camp, or maybe even the start of the pre or regular season from your perspective?
I mean, it seems like it, because this whole thing feels like it's never ending. Like that's the issue. I mean, Aiyuk is just becoming the problem with Aiyuk is that he's becoming this diva wide receiver, but most people kind of view it that view it as unearned. You know what I mean? Like, you can be a diva wide receiver, just like you can be a shit talking corner, but you got to be at the top of the league. You got to earn it. And Brandon Aiyuk, I feel like most people feel like he hasn't really earned it. So he just comes across as kind of a jerk. So I think but it seems like this whole thing is just never ending. And I'm so sick of this story, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, Ben, I think Nick D's right. I think we all share the frustration. By the way, folks, for those wondering, Brandon Aiyuk remains under contract with San Francisco for the next 2 seasons. But the deal, again, fell through, though, in an ongoing financial and legal stalemate. He signed a massive 4-year, $120 million contract extension in 2024. But now the Niners have voided all of his remaining $27 million in guaranteed money due to contract defaults. So, of course, that was involving the legal woes, though, with the speeding ticket that he had earned, though, revolving around him driving around the stadium in Santa Clara, flipping it off, so on and so forth. Ben, I agree, though, here that I think the last thing that any Niner fan wants right now is to have this distraction loom over the preseason, loom over training camp, loom over the season, where obviously the Niners have gotten so close over the last several years, to getting to a Super Bowl, though. But then you've got, but it's always weird, though, Ben. Like, there's always that one team who's got that one guy who's a stick in the mud, though, and seems to hold the team back in some capacity. Ben, reaction, though, to John Lynch, again, kind of in a way deflecting, though, but finally some signs of life, though, from the Niners revolving around Brandon Aiyuk's ongoing issues.
Yeah, I mean, he's just trying to do the best he can for his job. When you have something like this, I mean, my team, pretty much almost every team, at least will have some type of player that will be a star player, especially during like camp that like you just have to kind of just get asked about and see in terms of what happens. And, Brandon Aiyuk has obviously just been in a ton of trouble, and the story as a whole is not going to be probably getting resolved at least for a while, because he knows he doesn't want to make this a distraction for a team that is just trying to get themselves ready for the season. I mean, if you're not on the roster, I think personally for a guy like him, he should just be obliged to say, listen, like, he's obviously has to focus on in terms of what he's trying to do, but we're trying to get ourselves ready for the season and play with the guys that we have. And so I think that's currently what they're trying to do right now. And, I think when the time is coming, they're going to try to make a settlement happen, but I don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon.
Not to jump in here, and I have a pretty expressive face, so I know sometimes I'll hear something and I don't immediately make a face. I first and foremost, I don't think this guy's a troll and an asshole. I think this is a mental health crisis that's going completely undiagnosed because most people in the midst of a mental health crisis don't really listen to common sense, and they probably aren't listening to those in their camp because those in their camp are probably yes men. If you're in Brandon Aiyuk's camp, he's the guy that has the money. You're not going to piss off the guy that has the money, but right now he needs to be told something that may piss him off, which is you need to go see a doctor. You need to go talk to somebody. You're falling apart at the seams. Get your shit together. So first and foremost, I don't think he's an asshole. I think this is a mental health crisis. But two, I also don't think he's a distraction. And the reason why I don't think he's a distraction to the 49ers is because that guy did not show up at all last season. This would be season 2 of him just being MIA. As sick as Nick is of this, you have to imagine what his coworkers must fucking feel about this. I don't think he's even like on the 49ers radar in the slightest. Maybe he's on the 49ers legal team's radar, but I wouldn't.
Definitely.
Yeah, as a player,
has an active arrest warrant, by the way, for those wondering too, revolving around the charges he got during the season last year.
So yeah, like I don't think he'll be a distraction. It's unfortunate that it went the way that it did, but I think the 49ers are prepared for this season, going into this preseason, knowing that Brandon Aiyuk played their last game with him 2.5 seasons ago.
Yeah, David, I still think, though, that it's very much, though, sadly, a talking point, regardless of how we all feel. I get Connor's point. I get Nick D's point that, it's like, dude, like, come to grips with it, though. But I think, though, Connor has a great point, though, because we've been saying this stuff for the last, couple weeks, though, when we've had to talk about the story that, is this Antonio Brown? Is this just, a guy going through something, doesn't want to seek the help, though, rejecting the help, though. But I think, though, David, not much to offer from John Lynch, though, but certainly still, though, going to be a very big talking point, though, across this whole season, if you ask me, though. Your thoughts on Brandon Aiyuk's new leg, though, here involving John Lynch, again, deflecting questions from the Bay Area media this weekend.
Well, the one thing I noticed from last week, there's a rumor out supposedly he actually just bought a house in Virginia. Aiyuk.
That did happen, but I just want to remind everyone who has gone through the house purchasing process that to close on a house, that's several months in the process. So he could have kicked this whole process off on that house in Virginia before he started making jokes about Jaden Daniels' mom, however true they might be.
I think that he's just his own worst enemy. I think so. Like Connor said about the mental health thing, it could be, and very much I think it is. The thing is, where is family in this? Like having unless he has basically barricaded himself in, which I don't think he has. It's just I mean, why aren't they jumping in? I mean, you can say, well, it's if somebody's in that deep of trouble, you at least have a call them, or you go uninvited, you knock on the door and say like, hey man, we gotta talk. I think with the 49ers, it will come and go in one day. First day of camp. They'll talk and they'll say, we moved on. They'll talk to Kittle. They'll talk to Brock Purdy. And then probably somebody PR will say, this ends today. Like, we're not talking about the rest of it. We've moved on from Brandon Aiyuk. I think the 49ers got more things to be concerned about than him. It's just, and in terms of, I think even the Washington Commanders, I don't even think now they want to touch him. I think he's just his own worst enemy. It's like, why do we want a distraction when we're trying to focus on the thing? And like you said, their head coach is a military guy, basically, and Dan Quinn. Like, he's all focused, do this.
Structure.
And then you're going to bring in him? Good luck on that one if you do that. So, Yeah, I think Brandon Aiyuk is just going to be out of football this year.
I will say, if there is one team he could find a home in, and my brother's gonna stab me in a parking lot for saying this, I think it needs to be the Bills. Like, they've got no wide receiver room. They don't have one.
Well,
they've got Keon Coleman if he decides to be good. You know,
DJ Moore.
Okay. I'm not gonna take a ton of time to talk about DJ Moore, but I will say I think he is the most mid wide receiver number one you could have ever picked. I would have taken Brandon Aiyuk, arrest warrant and all, over DJ Moore.
Connor,
I'm glad they didn't take AJ Brown.
Yeah, Connor, real quick. Like I said, I know they're in. I thought you were going to say another team, and I know you have dead cap money out the wazoo. I thought you were going to say Miami.
No, see, Miami just likes to trade their wide receivers away, you know, without telling their QBs. That's their MO, you know. So I don't think they would grab one.
I was going to say if a team needed a wide receiver or a player who's got baggage, sadly, Ben, the Pats going to be like the perfect home for guys to get their lives back on track professionally and also personally too.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the Brandon Aiyuk rumors from the last couple of years before we finally, because we looked at Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's had some stuff off the field. We looked at D-Hop.
Self-explanatory there.
D-Hop right now is a coach for us now. So obviously all these Pats fans, of course, are now, well, he's technically like a training coach. Like he's in-person training. Like, I don't know if he's personally finished like right now.
Player development.
Randy Moss had some stuff, and I love me some Randy, but Randy, of course, had some stuff.
Rand University.
So yeah, I mean, Brandon Aiyuk was a guy I wanted. Thankfully, it's AJ Brown now, so I'm okay. And Romeo Dobbs.
Real quick, David, speaking of like head coaches who had military precision when it came to coaching, Bobby Ross with the Chargers in '94.
Yeah, you have certain ones that are like that. Yeah, I mean, they bring in military guys and whatever else. The other one, real quick, before we flip topics here, is Aiyuk, because I thought another person would love him because he loves being in attention. Dallas.
Oh
no! Why? No, what? I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, Jerry Jones. What do you call us? The Jets? No, I'm saying Dallas. It's Jerry. Jerry just pours and then sign him.
Where would they put him though? They've got two wide receiver number ones as their 1 and 2. Would they? Where would they put Aiyuk?
Probably Jerry would say, well, we're going to throw all three of them out there. Let them decide.
The thing
and
about
we're bringing back Ezekiel Elliott.
The thing about Aiyuk, though, I wonder, guys, is if he does get back with a team, what role does he want to be in? Because obviously he hasn't. Well, I think for his mind. In his mind, yeah. But
there's some truth to that, though. You know,
what do teams actually look at Aiyuk in terms as value as a receiver if he came back in the league?
I feel like with like, you know, the joke is wide receiver number 1, as we all just said, you know, in his mind. But at the same token, let's be honest. If he did show up to a team and did some wide receiver number 1 shit for the entire season, pretty much everyone's going to forget about all the baggage around Brandon Aiyuk because that's what they do every year with these wide receivers.
Yeah.
The one thing though about Aiyuk, he had a major knee injury. He tore every ligament in his knee, and that's the other thing. If I'm a team who he figures out his mental stuff, you sign him. I'm looking at that knee and go, can he go?
Got to be healthy for a full year.
Yeah, but like Callan said, he's also got to deal with his warrant for speeding at Levi Stadium.
Yeah, and that carries a lot of weight out here in California when it comes to driving laws, too, with what he was doing regarding, like, showboating, doing donuts in the parking lot or on the freeway, you know, and then, you know, aggressively speeding, you know, intimidation tactics, though. I mean, that carries a lot of weight out here in the Golden State. With that, guys, to all things college football, a couple of sleazy stories here to break here. But, guys, per front office sports, though, now former Michigan AD, Warde Manuel, who's out at the end of the year, though, is set to receive a single lump sum of his payment of $7 million within 3 weeks of his formal resignation in servant's payment, though. The massive payout comes amidst the ongoing stormy era for the Wolverines when it comes to football winning a natty and also as well when it comes to the men's basketball team winning the national title this past season, which has sparked massive debate across college athletics regarding accountability, executive compensation, but also golden parachutes during institutional transition phases. Obviously, Nick D, we know very well, my man, that the NCAA is a association not to get on the shit list for when it comes to stuff like this. But obviously, we talked about, Jim Harbaugh with, buying lunch for the recruits during the COVID dead period. We know about Connor Stalions. We know about, of course, what had gone on to with Sharon Moore on and off the field, though. Dusty May leaves to go coach the Mavericks. Nick D, overall, how do you probably remember the Warde Manuel era, but also with all the controversy around the Wolverines across their entire athletic department over the last, I'd say, 3 years?
Well, let me just point out how ridiculous this statement is, or the sentence is. He's set to receive a severance payment of $7 million within 21 days of his formal resignation. The words severance package and resignation don't mix.
They don't line up.
A severance package is when it's involuntary and you're being fired. A severance package is not for somebody who resigns. So clearly he's not actually resigning. I mean, they can't even get the
terms right.
Right. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if he's getting a severance package, he's obviously not resigning. He's obviously getting pushed out. When I look at, the Warde Manuel era of Michigan was fairly long.
Sure.
Since 2016.
10 years.
And actually, for the most part, it was actually fairly successful. If you think about it, Michigan football was good for most of that time. They had a couple of down years, but for most of that time, they were very good. Michigan basketball was also very good for most of that time. They weren't title winners. Last year was the only year that they won the title, but they were
always consistent.
Right. They were always one of the better. They were always a good basketball team. They were always a really good football team. If you think about it, now I'm not saying the AD is the reason why all of this happened. A lot of it is just coincidental because
happening underneath his watch.
Right. Like, it happened under his watch is my point. That's not like Harbaugh was already there when he became the AD. So a lot of it has to do with things outside of his control. But if you look at the Warde Manuel, if you want to look at the era of Michigan football and basketball, I don't care about anything else outside of football and basketball, but you would say it was actually pretty good for the most part. Just there was a lot of scandals, but to be fair, I don't know how much of that is really on the AD as much. I guess some of it is because supposedly maybe he knew Sharon Moore was messing around with one of his staffers and told them not to. There are stories of that. But I don't know. The way I see it is when you look at college programs, the successful ones often come with scandals. They just do. So you look at all of them. They all have a bunch of scandals. And I guess Michigan was just dumb enough to get caught doing a lot of what they did.
Sports and scandals, they go hand in hand because it's a competitive atmosphere. And whenever you have prolonged periods of competition, both externally and internally, people, I don't want to say party hard, but they slip into vices a lot more. Like, you see it a lot in high pressure, high level sales environments. The whole joke about you go back into a salesman's break room and you see a little bit of Coke on the table or some shit like that. That's real because the stakes are high. I think a lot of sports administrations, whether it's the athletic department, the coaching staff, the players themselves, when you're maintaining that level of competition for that long, you end up doing dumb shit. Just simply put, a relaxed, calm person who's been relaxed for the better part of the last 20 weeks or something is not going to go out and have an extramarital affair. IMO. Somebody who's balding from their job and looking for a stress relief probably is going to do some dumb shit to find that stress relief.
Fair points. Ben, how about your thoughts on where Warde Manuel stands? Obviously, national title in 23 for football, national title in 26 when it came to men's hoops. But again, Dusty May heads to the Mavericks. Sharon Moore having his problems. The Stallions sign-stealing scandal. Jim Harbaugh buying lunch for the recruits during a COVID dead period for recruiting. Ben, overall reaction to the last decade for Warde Manuel at Michigan?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I mean, you're just having like every year. I mean, obviously they beat us in the national championship for basketball. They obviously, got us last couple of years for football. But like as an overall program, they've had a ton, and I mean a ton of just off the court, off the field type of stuff. And you have to just kind of take into account in terms of what type of standard that Michigan, of course, is having in terms of their overall athletic programming, because it's great, but of course, in terms of the overall just everything together, it's just been feels like it's just kind of a domino effect. And of course, you have to kind of take a look at the top, the guy specific kind of running the whole entire thing. So it's definitely been very interesting, and hopefully that there's not more stuff ahead that of course is chaotic and stuff.
David, I pulled up a list real quick from Bleacher Report that was done about the top 10 worst scandals. And this is not to, throw Michigan in there, but just, comparing and contrasting, as I made the mention to Nick Morganson on Cranium on Tuesday, having worked much like yourself, though, in Division I, D2, D3, that, one little slip up and you're going to be, out of a job or giving, these penalties for 10 years. Obviously, Reggie Bush gives back the Heisman. USC was, set back years when it came to that after he talked to an agent. Florida State having their academic cheating scandal back in 06-07 with 61 players across 10 Seminole sports teams being accused of that. Kentucky basketball getting the death penalty, kind of, when John Calipari was there at one point during the course of the season. Duke lacrosse having the gang rape that happened in 2006 that, of course, that got dismissed. Alabama recruiting Albert Means back in 1999. The Pell Grant scandal at Miami comes to mind. The Tulane basketball scandal for point shaving back in 85. The Baylor basketball having the murder of Patrick Dennehy back in 2003 by his teammate Carlton Dotson. And then, of course, with SMU football, the Pony Express, living and dying basically at that time where things went. So with that in mind, though, David, reaction to the Warde Manuel era, but also, do these scandals hold any weight in your mind, though, when it comes to other stuff that's happened across college athletics?
They do. I mean, some do. A lot of them, like I thought Connor kind of said, like sometimes you get people just sort of sleep at the wheel, and that's what I feel like with Michigan. I mean, the one that I remember more than anything else was the Penn State scandal. I mean, Spangler,
Jerry Sandusky and Paterno, yeah.
That's, I mean, Paterno was told he looked the other way. Everybody else was told they looked the other way. Like he said, it's just, I just feel like a lot of these schools, especially in college, it's just like, all right, it's over here, but and whatever it was. But Nick said it best, like also too, Michigan won a championship in football and basketball, so they're almost like it's whatever else, I just think like I think like you said, like Connor said, all these big programs cheat. It's just the level of how they do it, or if it's even trouble stuff, and they just brush it aside. Like for example, with all the stuff with Georgia football and driving, like
right,
and the coaches basically swept it under and just said, "Well, I tell them that's all this stuff. This is why it's best I can do." And they move along. So you're always going to get some sort of scandals, different ones, whatever it is. Like this one, Michigan's had numerous ones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. I don't think anything's going to happen unless it got so severe that like you start talking death penalty. But I think even that now will never happen, just because if you were going to have death penalty like they did for SMU, Penn State deserved it with all that stuff with Sandusky. But they paid a ton of money. And then they kept the program going. But they really should have been given the death penalty to look back on the whole thing. So,
Connor, any other thoughts?
I think I always try and relate what we talk about administration-wise to a normal workplace. Like forget for the fact that this is the either NFL or college football.
Right.
Let's just pretend.
I agree.
Yeah, let's just pretend it's a normal workplace. You're by the work cooler or the water cooler or whatever.
Yeah.
Crazy shit happens at work, right? Sometimes coworkers don't like each other. Sometimes coworkers sleep with each other. This shit happens on a daily basis. The only reason why it gets blown up as badly as it does is the public nature of their jobs and the public nature of the offices they represent. Now I'm not talking about the cheating. I'm just talking about the interpersonal relationships that just tend to go awry. And this will this obviously I'm leading into the Alabama thing.
Right.
But I think people put these employees on way too much of a pedestal. And in doing so, it turns what would have just been a normal, or not normal, but like a flash in the pan into a multi-month media blitz.
Yeah, and obviously, Warde Manuel will be stepping down at the end of the year. It's not effective immediately. For those that were wondering, again, I think Nick and Zan talked about that on ETB Sports last Tuesday, that it won't be, right away. It's going to be, a thing that will be dragged out for a bit in a way, come hell or high water as time goes on. But that, folks, is where things do stand right now. Again, with Warde Manuel getting his full salary payout when it comes to where things have stood over the course of the issues, again, with Jim Harbaugh, who, again, of course, left for the NFL to go and coach the LA Chargers, the Connor Stallions sign stealing scandal, and, of course, as well with what, of course, took place, too, with the Sharon Moore issues, too. As Connor teased, though, folks, but in a massive, severe, dark crime story out of college athletics, a prominent executive linked to the Alabama Crimson Tide's NIL collective named Robert Aaron Suttles has been arrested and charged for involvement in an ongoing federal human trafficking operation. Law enforcement agencies executed targeted warrants leading to immediate terminations and emergency damage control from the collective and affiliated university entities, attempting to sever all ties across the board. Beyond the criminal charges, the scandal also highlights the absolute lack of federal oversight, background vetting, and also governance. For those who govern a third-party NIL collective and individuals operating with direct access to student athletes. David Weightman, your overall thoughts on this? You talk about a sleazy story here, but also I think, though, to a long point, though, that Nick Deese had, though, like myself, the Wild West that we have right now in college sports, somebody's got to get a hold of this steering wheel and get us back on track, because where we're heading right now is right now a terrifying time, though. And when you have news like this coming up, though, David, yikes.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Because I thought, I was looking at Connor when you were talking. I felt like he had something on his mind.
I really wanted to jump in here.
Yeah, I thought you were just reacting to Ben dropping.
No. This is what I'm fucking talking about, right? And I'm gonna sound like a miserable prick when I say this, but just give me the moment to flesh this out. The dude hired a prostitute, okay? It's human trafficking because they hired and transported a prostitute across state lines. And due to Alabama state law, that's considered human trafficking. The 14 people that was in this human trafficking ring were other dudes that hired the prostitute. He paid $100 for some sexual act. Do I think hiring a prostitute's a good deal? No. Is it the world's oldest profession for a fucking reason? Yes. People hire prostitutes. To quote OBJ, people in football like drugs and they like prostitutes. So when I see some shit like this, the dude hired a prostitute. That's not great. But to then focus, because that's a great media click, 14 people found in a human trafficking ring in deep South Alabama. It's just what are we doing? This is clickbait at best. And when you go and you look at the actual article, his bond is $1,000. If he was really trafficking people the way the name suggests, do you think they'd have his ass on a $1,000 bond or bail?
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, this is my first. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
No, Nick. Go.
Go ahead, so this is my first time hearing this story. I didn't know buying a prostitute meant that you could be charged with human trafficking. That's completely ridiculous. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing.
Unless to Connor's point, where it's about taking the person across state lines in Alabama.
Well, a perfect example is
here's one thing I don't understand is, why is something always so much worse if it crosses state lines?
Because different states have different rulings on a particular law. That's just entirely it. What the state of Florida considers prostitution, or what they would slap you a charge with for prostitution or solicitation of prostitution, is different than what Alabama would.
Right. Well, here's my issue with these headlines, which is that they're factual, but they're not truthful.
Exactly.
All right, it's technically factual that he was charged with human trafficking. But that headline is not truthful, because when people look at human trafficking, they think of actual legit human trafficking.
They think of Epstein. They think of Jeffrey Epstein.
You think of Epstein. Buying a prostitute is not trafficking. That's completely ridiculous. Just because it was in a car and they went, as long as it was an adult, as long as it like wasn't a child or anything like that. Like, I just don't think it should be that big of a deal just because he bought a prostitute. I don't really get it.
David?
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, Connor, I don't think you're miserable. I think you're passionate about the story. The thing that gets to me is the word trafficking. Like this, they know what my definition of human trafficking is when you see it in Texas and they get a big truck or whatever it is, and they get a bunch of people from Mexico or California or Arizona, and they go across that type of border type of thing. This just sounds like it was just a dude was horny. He had he had some money. And he went roll tide, and she said, "Okay, I'll take it." And then they busted.
Him and 14 friends went.
Oh.
And here's the worst part about all this. Here's the worst part, of my opinion, and this is why we know people in media have short memories. Matt Gaetz, who is a politician, he was the senator of Florida for a time, hired a prostitute who was, solicited sex from a 17-year-old that was like 3 states away. And the age of consent was 17 in Florida. So he paid to have her come to Florida so he could legally have sex with her there. Morally reprehensible. Fucking disgusting. He's also married. When he got charged, well, he didn't get charged with anything, first and foremost. He had his lawyer, the attorney general at the time, write out to Supreme Court, my client did nothing. But even if he did, can we get a pardon?
Right.
Nothing happened. Nothing came of it. But that's like the thing that bugs me the most is like you have shit like that, which is genuinely trafficking, and nothing. Dude didn't even have to pay a fine, if I recall correctly. He got the pardon he wanted. Alabama NIL executive. I've seen it on 7 different news articles in the time that we've been on this show right now. I had to dig for the information about Matt Gaetz when that came out.
This guy, by the way, he'll probably stay there. He'll plead. He'll have to go to like therapy, like type of like rehab therapy. Seriously, I mean, like a rehab.
It's so laughable, but it's true.
Right, for some sort of like hooker addiction, and then like, but if he's great at his job at NIL. Like, hey, we'll just do it. He learned his lesson. He won't do it again. And if he does it again, we'll fire him.
Also, I looked at what his job title is, so therefore his responsibilities. He's the director of content, which just means you're a PR guy. You're the dude that makes the shitty TikTok videos, okay? Like, if the dude who makes shitty TikTok videos for a living wants to get a blowjob and pay $100 for it, I mean...
Well, I mean, it's probably going to come out in video here soon anyway.
That's like, as long as they don't do a TikTok dance about it, I mean, I'm sure it's fine.
And real quick, just to add a bit more juice to the story from the sports perspective, Robert Suttles was also a former sports reporter for the local newspaper in Tuscaloosa and was also a athletic beat writer and had overseen content for Alabama, which is the NIL collective since it launched in 2023. A spokesperson for the NIL collective did tell AL.com and also ESPN that Suttles has been suspended and will not be performing work for the outfit while the legal process unfolds. And an investigation also takes place. And, of course, the site has taken him fully off of the staff page at the time that we are currently at this rate. And I concur with this. Sounds like the NFL's version of how they handled DV. Just don't do it again.
Yeah, except I think that I at least think that when DV is a much more serious thing than just buying a prostitute. That's like domestic violence, I think, is a lot more serious and really needs to be handled a lot more than something like this.
I think it's also where it's at too. Like in terms of the SEC, I think it's like you said, how it's handled. If this was handled in, I'm throwing out D1s like Boise State, the guy would have probably been fired. Something like mid-major type of thing. Boise State, Toledo, somewhere in the MAC.
That was kind of my point about my thoughts about Michigan on Tuesday on Cranium. Like if this happens at the University of San Diego, if this happens at Toledo, if this happens at Boise State or at San Diego State or I don't know, St. John's or, any mid-major university.
I don't know if St. John's is the best example for a few reasons, but
or any mid-major program that this becomes like nationwide news. I made a mention last Tuesday or on Wednesday on Press Row that my university's football team had a hazing scandal and that whole thing broke out, and this is on a Roman Catholic faith-based university where that happened. Guys were suspended. The coach and the athletic department, froze up the media for the full season, led to the resignation of the AD and his assistant, and that, of course, was a big nightmare for my school. We had, a men's basketball coach get arrested for some sleazy business in 2013 or 2016, 2017, when they were having one of their better years in recent memory. So, but again, that goes, nationwide in a way, though. And of course, this one here, I think more troublesome, though, for the fact that somebody working for the collective where I think, though, Nick D, just to where you and I both agree at this rate, that until we get a full hold on NIL across college athletics, even away from this, though, it's still in a way kind of damaging the college athletic brand from my perspective.
Well, I don't. But the thing is, this particular story has nothing to do with like NIL.
Yeah, that's why I said away from
right.
That's still it's tough to really, I think, get a firm grasp of where NIL is at.
Right. I'm just saying, I don't think this particular story has anything to do with NIL. It's just about this particular individual. I kind of think it's the issue with NIL is a totally separate.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, obviously, it's going to become a big story, especially with the words human trafficking, which, what was, I guess, what he was charged with. But, what is it with college sports and its connections with prostitution? There's so many stories with college sports and prostitution. I mean, we had Hugh Freeze when he was at Ole Miss. We had Rick Pitino at Louisville. There's a whole lot of this stuff that's going on.
Urban Meyer with the Jaguars.
Did that involve prostitutes?
I feel like it did.
Here's the thing that I'm curious about. Did he get caught before or after services were rendered? And the reason why is because if it's after, one of his homeboys snitched him out. One of the 14 probably said some shit. If it was before,
yeah.
Does he get an IOU or do they give him a punch card or something? Because he already paid for the service. The reason why I bring this up also is you guys may not remember this, but do you know how there are certain states that now have legal bordellos? I think it's somewhere in the South.
Legal what?
Bordellos. They're it's a fancy word for a whorehouse.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm blanking on what state it is. It's killing me. I'll remember it after the show. But
I thought it was Nevada, but I'm wrong.
Yeah, it might be Nevada. But there is this one. There's this one bordello that every year, right around the draft period for college teams, or not draft period for college teams, draft team for NFLs, they get an influx of West Coast and Central U.S. NFL execs to the same bordello. So whether it's college, whether it's professional, the unfortunate thing is that it seems that in the sporting world, people like to hire prostitutes.
Well, in the non-sporting world too, guys with money often hire prostitutes.
Well, the legendary one was Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
Oh, LT, I forgot.
Remember,
One of them ended up being a 15-year-old.
Yeah, no, I was talking about the other thing where he would hire prostitutes. The story supposed was he knew who he was playing, and he would hire prostitutes to go to that opposite player to do her thing so that he would be weaker when it came to game day.
Yeah.
That was
Hey,
Did that actually work, though?
By the way, I wanted to clarify the Urban Meyer with the Jaguars story. So CBS Sports back, guys, I think you might remember that the Jaguars did not have to pay him a $30 million lawsuit for, I guess he filed a grievance against the franchise for his termination. But back in October of 2021, Meyer skipped a Jaguars plane ride home after a Thursday night game against the Bengals. Rather than flying back to Jacksonville, he stayed back in Columbus and was seen photographed with a young woman that was on his wife at a bar after the game was over with.
Yes.
So it was not what I thought it was, but still.
like I saw that, like, so Lieutenant Clayton Smith, who's the commander of the Shelby County Drug Task Force, he said, "We will not tolerate the victimization of vulnerable women here in Shelby County." It's like, it sounds like these are adults and not like, people that are being trafficked, like they're choosing to be prostitutes. Like they're not victims if
they're just Southern belles.
Right. Like some of this wording, it seems so ridiculous.
It's Alabama. Roll Tide.
I think also going back, not to say everything gets a conspiracy, but if it happened before services were rendered, then it was a sting operation. That's number one. If it happened,
go ahead. Sorry.
If it happened afterwards, one of his boys ratted him out. Now, why? Then most likely a career grab. It's pretty easy to get a director position when you can get the current director fired.
Well, don't you think it could have been because they said you have to rat somebody out the same way that's how they usually get people to rat their friends out?
But you also have to consider this. The bond is $1,000. It's a misdemeanor charge. Solicitation of prostitution is a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. I've never ever have been down bad enough to be like, damn, let me give this woman $50. I've never had that problem, right?
Yeah.
But if I was sitting in a jail cell and they were saying, you're going to have to give up your fellow co-conspirators, or what? Or what? You clap me in irons and make me sit in county jail for 30 days because I got my knob sucked? Fuck you. Here's $1,000. Suck me too for free.
Wait, but don't you think some people really just aren't like loyal to their friends to the point where that's all it would take to get them to rat?
So I'm looking at this story, right? Yeah. And I think they published the 14 names or one of 15, not 14. I apologize. One of 15. I don't think they did publish the other names yet, but I'd be very curious to find out who comes into the position following this guy's exit. Because I feel like it had to have been a coworker. It had to have been a coworker who knew that him and his 15 other coworkers were going to go out at that night and do some dumb shit. Because, like, I don't know about you, but, like, if you're hanging out with your buddies and you're like, oh, what's the moves after work? Oh, we're going to go to the bar. Yeah, we're hiring prostitutes too. That shit doesn't happen. That doesn't come up normally,
I think it was before. I think they just got videos. I think it was a video sting. As soon as he gave the money, boom, they came.
But so you're saying it was secret, like it was actually like it was a sting, set up by the police, is what you're saying?
Because if it happened before, it has to have been. Did a cop just happen to come by?
Undercover operation?
Right. I do have a legal question about sting. There's no lawyers on this panel, but this is a legitimate question.
4 years of pre-law.
What's that?
I did 4 years of pre-law.
Okay, so maybe did you really?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you would know, like, how legal are sting operations? Like, at some point, there is such thing as entrapment.
There is. It varies from state to state, so I can only speak to New York State. Like, you can't. In the framing example that they've always used is the police aren't allowed to leave a car unlocked in the middle of a bad neighborhood and then arrest the first person they see trying to steal the car. They're not allowed to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not allowed to do that. So I don't know about in the state of Alabama, like what their laws are in regards to sting operations, but I do know that two of the most common crimes to be subjected to sting operations is prostitution and drugs.
Right.
Makes sense.
Well, so here's the question though: if undercover police officers try to sell somebody drugs, there is no way that is not entrapment. That has to be entrapment because then in that case, it's the police creating a crime that would have otherwise not happened. That has to be entrapment, right?
Honestly, again, it's been years since I've did the pre-law. I would have to say no is the short answer. Is the short answer. It's not entrapment. However, again, I can't speak to what Alabama's rules are. I do know Alabama does have a very strict laws regarding sex trade in Alabama. But a lot of deep South states tend to have those sort of laws in place. But they're also there are centennial laws, where they're laws that have been in place for over 100 years without much revisions.
Makes sense.
Okay, so I looked it up. It says the government inducement. So the core legal arguments are police or undercover agents must actively push, pressure, or trick a person into breaking the law. Simply offering a chance to commit a crime like a standard sting operation does not count as inducement. So I guess if they really egg you on is how it works. So basically, the defendant must show that they were an innocent person who was not ready or willing to commit the crime. If a person was already looking to break the law, it doesn't count. So I guess that's why something like To Catch a Predator is allowed, because like, all right, you were looking for like young girls because you're a predator. It's not that's not entrapment, but it's entrapment if they're like, come on, take these drugs, and then eventually like, all right, I'll take it. I guess.
Dude, those DARE programs lied to me. Nobody was gonna give me free fucking drugs. Like, I got so excited. You tell me I have to buy this from you?
I love that this show is turning into Law and Order.
But it's an interesting
Dun.
I mean, if you think about it, there is a lot of legal gray area in that regard. So I guess he's not going to have entrapment because I guess he buys prostitutes all the time, I suppose.
Sure seems
like a really good place to find prostitutes is Vegas. They are.
I could have told you that.
They are. Yeah,
I believe in Vegas they prefer the term escort, though.
Well, it means the same thing. So that's like when
go and ask Gilbert Arenas about that, and Jonathan Phillips about that.
That was Jelly Roll's ex-wife, I believe, was that at one point. There was something about that. Didn't she get in trouble for that?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, she was a sex worker for a few years. Like over a decade ago.
And Nevada's got the famous brothel, the Bunny Ranch.
The
numerous
Bordella,
people famous went there. So yeah.
I will say, just off the topic of like sex related, issues. Did anyone see the interview that one guy did with Pat Bev going over how his teammate impregnated a 13-year-old?
What?
Yeah. No. You hold on. Let me see if I can. Well, this is an old story because the kid later grew up to go play in the NFL, and the guy rejected. I'm pulling at straws here because I saw it at 10 a.m. earlier today. Pat Bev interview regarding.
I don't know what you're talking. I never heard this.
What?
Patrick Beverly finds out for the first time about Carl Malone.
Carl Malone.
Yeah, it wasn't Pat Bev. I apologize. It wasn't Pat Bev impregnating a 13-year-old.
Okay, I was going to say, I brought up Carl Malone. I was going to say, that kid ended up playing in the NFL.
Yeah. So I was watching the interview just today, and the interview happened in 2025, so it was last year. So I was a little bit late to the punch. But for a solid 2 minutes, Pat was like, I don't know all the specifics. And then the guy would be like, yeah, he impregnated a 13-year-old. And then he would be like, oh, well, it's just, it's crazy to me that in the sports world, we give these players and so many, I don't want to say saving graces, but so many allowances. Like, I think about Stephon Diggs currently undergoing all the fact that he's in a sexual assault case with a guy. Apparently him and his brother drugged him. So to me, it drives me up the wall that we click farm these interactions, like the Alabama, VIP guy or Alabama NIL guy. But then when it comes to actual crimes that players perpetrate, it's just like, well, this is just noise before the season,
So with that, guys, we're going to move on real quick to let you know again that you can tune into Give and Takes with Nate Miller, the only show brave enough to say out loud what you're already thinking on the TV. Join Nate every single Monday and eventually Tuesday as he breaks down the biggest storyline, shuts down the hype trains, and delivers the unfiltered truths you won't get anywhere else. It is fast, it's funny, and also completely unscripted. Catch Give and Takes every Monday at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, right here on ETB. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/ETB Network. Real quick, guys, before we get to the closing monologue for the night, though. Nick D, real quick, thoughts on the Baseball Hall of Fame induction today? Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, and also Jeff Kent going in. Any perspective or thoughts you'd like to pass along?
I think they were all good. They were. I always thought Carlos Beltran was a Hall of Famer. Andrew Jones also a Hall of Famer. I think all three of these guys I knew were getting into the Hall of Fame. As a Met fan, a lot of Met fans have very mixed feelings about Carlos Beltran.
Rightfully so, though. Yeah.
Yeah, like I understand that on some level. At the same time, it's like, look, he's still the best outfielder in Mets history, probably. I mean, if you were to create your all-time Mets starting lineup, you're easily putting Carlos Beltran in center field. And he clearly has Hall of Fame numbers. So I think all of these, look, what would you say is a harder Hall? Because like the Naismith Hall of Fame is fairly easy. It's definitely the easiest one. I mean, I would say maybe baseball or football would be the hardest.
Especially when you got crouchy voters committees. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a lot of baseball writers are just awful. Like when it comes to the Hall of Fame, like I would rather have, Barry Bonds and all the steroid guys in. I think the Hall of Fame's become a joke. I actually saw
fan voting too.
What's that?
It's fan voting's getting in the way for a lot of things when it comes.
Yeah. Well, I actually went there once, but to Cooperstown, but a long time ago. It's in the middle of nowhere. Either way, I think all this makes perfect sense.
Connor, thoughts on the Baseball Hall of Fame induction today?
I don't know much about it, to be honest. I'm still relatively new to baseball, so when someone says like, "Oh, this guy's a legend," I know a lot of the big names, but I don't know the context or the emotion behind it.
Yeah, David, how about your thoughts? Obviously, you saw Beltran for quite a long time with the Mets playing the Phillies. Obviously, Jeff Kent, amazing career though too. Again, remembered for his time in San Francisco. I think he got him via the
Veterans Committee.
Yeah, the other committee as well. And then, of course, Andrew Jones, I think 10 straight Gold Gloves, won in Atlanta with the Braves in the 90s. David, thoughts on the Hall of Fame?
I thought Beltran and Kent deserved it. I mean, especially look at Kent's numbers when he was with the Giants. I mean, most of his career, he always had really good numbers. Beltran really did too. Andrew Jones, I kind of was like mixed on. He didn't have 2,000 hits. He had 434 home runs. Like, you look at his hits and his things, 44% of his career hits were home runs. But he had 10 or 11 Gold Gloves. And I get that part of it. His induction, when I say getting in, I was kind of like, but he got in. Like, there's some down the road. There's going to be some really bad ones. Like the one coming up is Chase Utley, doesn't deserve to be in. And I'm a Phillies guy. He doesn't even have 2,000 hits. Another one. But, that's the MLB, Hall of Fame. They're kind of like, they were devoted to me. Yeah. So.
Yeah, they're crotchety. Ben Kruse, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think all of them deserve it. I think Jeff Kent was obviously one that played in 17 seasons, obviously very well known with the Giants, of course, playing a lot with Barry. Andrew Jones obviously was a very good Atlanta Brave. I mean, he was obviously one of the best to ever do it, 5-time All-Star in center field. And then, Carlos Beltran. I mean, of course, he's been awesome wherever he's been. I think another thing, too, I love about him is he's really good from both sides of the plate. Being a switch hitter, I think that speaks volumes for a lot of things because you don't just see a lot of Hall of Famers in baseball that are switch hitters anymore. You just don't. And, Beltran, obviously, like Nick mentioned for the Mets, like he was just a very solid center fielder and, at least solid just kind of everywhere you play him in the outfield. So, I think all of them deserve it. And, we'll see what is next for the next Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, I concur. Again, Andrew Jones in the 90s Braves, I mean, with what they built down there over their, 16 straight division championships, what Carlos Beltran did for the Mets at the pinnacle of like their, surge in the late 90s, early 2000s, and that veteran-led group, though. Jeff Kent, workhorse, always played his ass off for San Francisco. So, again, congrats to all three of those gentlemen on heading into the Hall of Fame earlier on Sunday. Gents, before we put the chairs up on the tables and count the register for the night, we should look at the sheer weight of what we just witnessed over the last 2 hours here on the program. Tonight was another stark reminder of how fast the power can shift and how chaotic the business behind sports can get. Tonight, we watched the NBA's balance of power tilt east with LeBron James committing to the 76ers, and saw a pennant race hit a massive speed bump with Juan Soto landing on the IL, while the WNBA stakeholders openly are questioning Cathy Engelbert's leadership and if she's unfit to lead the position. We also saw Kyle Shanahan walk away from a car crash while John Lynch holds the line on Brandon Aiyuk, remaining on the left squad list. And off the field, we saw the stark optics of a $7 million lump sum buyout for Warde Manuel, alongside a horrifying legal situation rocking the college NIL landscape down in Alabama. But guys, whenever the glasses are empty and the neon signs hum in the dark, what's left is the connection that we all share. The fact that through every blockbuster move and every contract standoff and front office storm, we're still going to wake up tomorrow morning and care deeply about these stories, no matter how messy the sports world might get. You've always got a seat right here at the counter. A quick note, folks, that both myself and Nick D are out next Sunday. But don't worry, our good man Tom Albano will step behind the counter to serve up the drinks next Sunday night. A huge thanks again, though, to Nick D, along with David, Ben, and also Connor for handling the heavy lifting on the panel, and to everyone in the live chat, keeping the taps flowing. We appreciate you very much. We'll again see you back here, folks, next Sunday. But again, Tom Albano is in for myself and Nick D. Until then, folks, have a great night and a great week. We'll catch you again next time here inside the ETB Lounge right here on the Empty the Bench Network on YouTube and via Twitter. Until next time, have a great day and a great week. Bye-bye.
See you.
Yeah.